We are thrilled to have back here on the Rich Eisen Show, ESPN.com, senior writer Ramona Shelburne. How you doing, Ramona?
Oh man, I finally got to sleep.
Seriously?
Last night.
No, seriously.
I kind of fell asleep on the couch really early, and it was I never go to sleep before midnight, but this was finally the calls stopped at 10 p.m. and I think I just fell asleep on the couch and woke up at 4 in the morning. Whoa. Oh, man, this has been a heck of a week so far.
I play this game with Schefter frequently, Ramona, so let's do that right now. Let's just put our journalist hat and put it in the
okay.
Take it off for a minute. What's the craziest rumor, unsubstantiated rumor that you've heard that's come across your ears this week?
Oh, okay, crazy, crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I think that there are teams that are already calling New Orleans trying to get Anthony Davis. I don't know how the heck you could get him or that kind of answer, all the people who you think are untouchable. But I think there's teams, especially the one that I cover pretty closely, the Lakers, who have some designs on how can we get Anthony Davis here, right? Because we're all in this fantasy basketball era where everyone's trying to construct these super teams that can contend with Golden State, because that's really the only way you can beat them.
Well, I'm as I started the show by saying all my Laker fan friends here in Los Angeles and all the Laker fans that I hear locally on the radio, Ramona, think that Lonzo's going to get drafted and then Paul George is going to get acquired and then LeBron's coming. So everything's coming up roses for the Lakers as we're currently sitting here. And then three of those players are not currently on their roster. So what is the Laker plan right now? Are they still trying to wait out George and draft Lonzo and try and get the cap space cleared for LeBron at some point? What is their plan?
Yeah, I think that's the plan. I think yesterday was a really big deal just because they cleared out the contract for Timofey Mozgov, right? And they still have some work to do because remember last year when they signed Mozgov and Luol Deng, and it was I remember it was in the first 24 hours of free agency. I think one of them was really early. I think Mozgov was first off the board, and one of the contract was 4 years, 64, and I had this one GM hit me because it was the first sticker shock contract last year, right? Remember that was the first one. People, whoa! I guess this is what people are getting now, right? Now that the salary cap spiked, and one GM was like, "Did the Lakers say to Mozgov's agent 4 for 16, and they just got it wrong? Did they mean 4 years?" For 16 total, and then the agent came back, yeah, great, so 16 a year. That's how bad that contract was, in terms of value, and it just kind of set things in motion. Very soon afterwards, they signed Luol Deng to a contract that's even worse, 4 years, 72, and so those two contracts were I think they were the final nail in the coffin for Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak in the eyes of their sister. Because they were just so unjustifiable, and they really locked the Lakers into this place where they don't have any way of getting better unless they could find someone who would take them. And you know what it took to get rid of one of the contracts, and the Mozgov contract is the worst of the two contracts. It took trading the guy who was the number 2 overall pick in the draft 2 years ago. And I know D'Angelo wasn't didn't pop in his first couple of years, right? He wasn't. But I don't think he had gotten to bust status. I think he had a year last year that you saw some potential. You're okay, if you put them in the right spots and you figure out how to use them the right way. He matured a lot last year. He was still in the growth process where you'd say this is absolutely selling low on him. But that's what it took to get rid of the Mozgov contract. And if they're able to turn that salary cap space into 2 superstar players, it'll be worth it. If they're not, well, that's the risk they're taking now. But I feel more confident in Rob Pelinka and Magic Johnson of being able to do that than I do in Jim Buss and Mitch Kupchak.
Well, when it all comes down to it, though, you think, okay, let's slot Lonzo Ball in there second overall and then use the cap space. But then there are reports that the number 2 overall pick might be used to lure Paul George right here, right now, and start the process right now. Did the Lakers have to sacrifice one for the other, do you think?
I don't think so. I think look, that's the leverage point right now, okay, is that Indiana wants the number 2 pick because, quite frankly, if you're Indiana, Paul George has put you in a very uncomfortable position where you really have no leverage. Because this is now public and because he clearly wants to go to the Lakers. Like, any team that's trading for him is going to do it as a rental. And that's really hard to give up good young players and picks and assets and all. It's really hard to justify doing that for a guy who is going to leave, right? And not to mention how uncomfortable it would be for that guy in your town all year, like the questions all year long, like, well, you're just going to the Lakers. So it almost made it so that Indiana could only deal with the Lakers. And that's why they were talking yesterday, from what I understand, like Indy just, they never moved off wanting that 2 pick. And the two construction I had heard was, one was like the 2 pick and D'Angelo. And then there was another one that was D'Angelo and Brandon Ingram. So it was, there's 2 assets the Lakers don't want to move, the number 2 pick or Brandon. And Indy's still asking for them for Paul George. And I think, sometimes it's about winning the press conference, right? We talk about it all the time. If you're Indy and you've been backed into this position by the player and he wants to go to LA, you can't then trade him to the place that he wants to go and have a deal that seems like you lost.
Ramona Shelburne of ESPN joining me here on the Rich Eisen Show. And yet, when you're sitting here in Los Angeles trying to lure LeBron, having a point guard in Chris Paul, and then having a grocery shopper in the form of the guy that LeBron has referred to as the Godfather and Jerry West, it would be helpful to have that all in one place. And there is one place that actually does have that all in one place, as we're currently sitting here in the Clippers. What do you think the Clippers are going to do over the next couple of days here, Ramona?
I don't think there's much the Clippers can do. They're so boxed in, with their salary cap situation. Like, if they re-sign Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, the only option they really have is to trade DeAndre Jordan or Austin Rivers. And I don't know how much you get for Austin Rivers. DeAndre would get a lot, but again, he's a free agent after one more year. And we remember how free agency went for him the last time. I think that actually matters and factors into teams that would potentially trade for somebody. So there's just not that much they can do. They kind of are what they are. And the only way that they substantially change is if they let their players go. And if they let their players go, then you go, okay, well, what are you going to get for them? Are you going to do a sign and trade? Or can you get anything back? Or are you just really starting over? I don't know. I don't think they have many moves. As much as Jerry West is an incredible architect and he has still a great eye for talent, and he's, they needed him 2 years ago. They really needed him 2 years ago because they've wasted a lot of first-round picks. They've been, reckless in the way that they've drafted and traded away those picks. And that's what Jerry's best at. And so now they're in a spot where, like, you needed him 2 years ago. I don't know how much he's really going to be able to do with what they have. They got Blake and Chris and DeAndre, and that's about it. And, like, maybe if you re-sign them, then you could trade one of them in February or something and reconstitute the team. But, like, they're really locked in. It's like a country that's not near the ocean. They're landlocked. Where do you go?
Couple of more minutes left with NBA insider and senior writer from ESPN, Ramona Shelburne. So here we are 24 hours before the draft, and the D'Angelo Russell trade makes everybody think it's going to be Lonzo Ball. What is the Lakers' thoughts on Ball's dad, LeVar, now that it is finally push come to shove time with 24 hours to go? And is it possible we get the biggest surprise of the draft with De'Aaron Fox's name being mentioned second overall tomorrow night?
Yeah, look, I'll tell you, I don't think they've been concerned about LeVar Ball, just in the sense that, one, you haven't heard from him lately. Have you noticed that? He hasn't been public in the last couple of weeks.
Well, not only that, Ramona, we saw a hilarious Foot Locker spot where Lonzo is poking fun of the situation. A little bit of humility and sense of humor in a manner that we haven't seen it.
Yeah, and that nice letter he wrote on Players Tribune. So they're kind of doing all the right things right now, and I think some of LeVar Ball is it's like sort of more us than him in the way, like, we keep giving him a microphone, right? He'll keep saying stuff if you put a microphone in his face. So some of it is just the discipline on their end to say no. So I think that's what's been happening the last couple of weeks. And that shows a little self-awareness, okay? But I also think that, the concern with LeVar, and it's not just the Lakers' concern, is just if he says something about teammates or future for, guys in the league, if he says something about teammates, that can be tough. It's one thing to say that about TJ Leaf at UCLA, and, I don't think TJ appreciated what he said about him, but he's a college kid, whatever. If you went and said that about a grown man in the NBA who's been a veteran player, like, it's not going to go over well, right? I know it didn't go over well when he was calling out Steph Curry and LeBron, and like, but you saw LeBron even respond. The fact that he even dignified that, tells you how much that bothered him. So I think that's the concern with LeVar. It's not about anything else about the big baller brand or anything. Like, he can do whatever he wants to do there, but it's more about you saying things about either your teammates or other guys in the league. I don't think it's the reason the Lakers wouldn't draft him. I don't think that factors in at all. The kid can play. So, and they like the way he plays. They think he makes everyone better. The real question is, what do you need more, offense or defense? Because the Lakers had the absolute worst defense in the league last year. And Josh Jackson and De'Aaron Fox are huge upgrades there, not just physically and athletically, but attitude-wise. And I think that's really what's going back and forth in their head right now. Although, saying all this, if they keep the 2 pick, I really do think they're going to take Lonzo. But if they trade back, and get an extra pick somewhere, I could see them take one of the other 2 guys, or they like a couple guys later in the lottery too.
And so who do the Celtics take? Do they take a kid whose medical reports just finally landed on their desk just today in Josh Jackson, Ramona?
Yeah, I think that's interesting with Josh because he hasn't come in there to work out, right? And, they had to really beg him to get those medical reports. And it's just like, it's an interesting way to start a relationship with a team, right? And especially a team like Boston that's a proud franchise. And, so it's one thing to do that to, like, I don't know, pick a small market team. Like, players don't like Cleveland or something. Now, I guess they wouldn't do that to Cleveland, but Charlotte, or it's one thing to do it to a team like that. But do that to the Celtics, that's harder. But I think they probably do pick him anyway, just because he's a great prospect and he has the most value. Danny Ainge is probably just going to draft the kid who has the most value at that spot. And if they don't take him, maybe they take Jason Tatum. Those are the 2 names that everybody keeps thinking for the Celtics. And what I love about Boston's position right now is they went from being the team in the driver's seat where, like, everybody has to call them, to move up or to set the draft, see what they're going to do. I still think they're there. I really do. I think there's a lot of teams that want to trade into that 3 spot to have a shot at Josh Jackson or De'Aaron Fox. And that, if you know Danny Ainge the way I do, he's going to use that.
So then ask Ramona the poll question before we let her go. Brockman.
Yeah, Ramona, which team helped themselves the most this week with their moves? The Sixers, the Celtics, or the Lakers?
What do you think?
I'm going to say the Sixers. I like the Sixers. I like that they kind of win. They like it. They really needed a guy like that. They really needed a playmaker like that. And I know they gave up a lot, but they have so many draft picks. Like, at some point, you just got to move. And, like, the whole point of this was to get stars. So the one guy in this draft that people feel like could be a star, and sooner rather than later, is Markelle Fultz. So I'll go with those guys.
Ramona, great work. Love having you on. Next time it's in studio, okay? No more phone conversations for us.
All right,
okay?
all right. We'll work on that.
You got it.
All right, thanks, Rich.
You got it. That's Ramona Shelburne of ESPN joining us here on The Rich Eisen Show.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on radio stations across the country and audience.
If you like that, please download our app. There's lots of fun things there other than just more of the videos you just saw. You can call us from the app. You can email us from the app. Just download it. Trust me, you'll enjoy it.